Hello friends, today I am going to explain about administration of Tipu Sultan. ಇವತ್ತಿನ ವಿಷಯ ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನರ ಆಡಳಿತ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ. Tipu Sultan was very keen to promote the agricultural output. He introduced agrarian reforms to encourage agricultural production. Silver coins were first issued by Tipu and issued Sultan Asrafi also made of gold. Under both Hyder Ali and Tipu, the administration was firm and efficient. Tipu Sultan rose to the highest level of personal abilities. He appeared in true colors of his merits and he fitted perfectly well in the position of an efficient army general and humanitarian administrator. When he took over the reign of Mysore kingdom on 26 December 1782 after the demise of his father Hyder Ali. So, ಹೈದರ್ ಅಲಿ ಒಂದು ಮರಣದ ನಂತರ ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನ್ 1782ರಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಶ್ರೀರಂಗಪಟ್ಟಣದ ಅಧಿಪತಿಯಾಗಿ ಮೈಸೂರಿನ ಒಡೆಯನಾಗಿ ಅಧಿಕಾರವನ್ನು ಸ್ವೀಕಾರ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ತದನಂತರದಲ್ಲಿ ತಮ್ಮ ಆಡಳಿತಾವಧಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಚಿನ್ನದ ನಾಣ್ಯಗಳು ಮತ್ತು ಬೆಳ್ಳಿಯ ನಾಣ್ಯಗಳ ಚಲಾವಣೆ ತರ್ತಾನೆ. ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಸುಲ್ತಾನಿ ಅಸ್ರಾಫಿ ಎಂಬ ಚಿನ್ನದ ನಾಣ್ಯ ಕೂಡ ಚಲಾವಣೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ತಿಳಿದು ಬರುತ್ತದೆ. ವಾರ್ ರಾಕೆಟ್ಸ್ ತಮ್ಮ ಯುದ್ಧ ತಂತ್ರಗಾರಿಕೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ತಮ್ಮ ಸೇನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ವಾರ್ ರಾಕೆಟ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಬಳಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು ಅಂತ ತಿಳಿದುಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನ್, ದ innovator of the world's first war rocket. Two of these rockets captured by the British at Srirangapatna were displayed in the Royal Artillery Museum in London. According to historian Dr. Dulari Qureshi, Tipu Sultan was a fierce warrior king and was so quick in his movement that it seemed to the enemy that he was fighting on many fronts at the same time. Tipu managed to subdue all the petty kingdoms in the south. He was also one of the few Indian rulers to have defeated British armies. ತನ್ನ ಸೇನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಯುದ್ಧ ರಾಕೆಟ್ಗಳನ್ನು ಬಳಸಿಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದ. ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷರಿಗೆ ಸಿಂಹ ಸ್ವಪ್ನನಾಗಿ ಸೌತ್ ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ನ ದಕ್ಷಿಣ ಭಾರತ ರಾಜರಲ್ಲಿ ಇವನು ಕೂಡ ಒಬ್ಬ ಪ್ರಬಲ ರಾಜನಾಗಿದ್ದ. ಅಡ್ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನ್ ಅಡಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನೇವಿ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ, ನೌಕಾಪಡೆ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿತ್ತು ಅಂತ ತಿಳಿದುಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. In 1786, Tipu Sultan, again following the lead of his father, decided to build a navy consisting of 20 battle ships of 70 cannons and 20 frigates of 65 cannons. In the year 1790, he appointed Kamaluddin as his Mir Bahar and established massive dockyards at Jamalabad and Majidabad. Tipu Sultan's board of admiralty consisted of 11 commanders in service of Mir-Am. A Mir-Am led 30 admirals and each one of them had 2 ships. Tipu Sultan ordered that the ships have copper bottoms, an idea that increased the longevity of the ships and was introduced to Tipu by Admiral Safrin. So, ತಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಯುದ್ಧ ಕೌಶಲ್ಯಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ನೌಕಾಬಲವು ಕೂಡ ಪ್ರಬಲವಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಒಟ್ಟಾರೆ 20 ಯುದ್ಧ ನೌಕೆಗಳನ್ನು ಹೊಂದಿದ್ದನು ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನ್ ತನ್ನ ಸೇನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಬಹುದು. ಆರ್ಮಿ ಸೇನೆ, due to their perpetual battle engagements, Hyder Ali and Tipu required a disciplined standing army. Thus, Rajputs, Muslims and Bedars were enrolled full-time service, replacing the local militant called the Kandachara force of agricultural origin which existed in the Mysore army earlier. The removal of the Vakkaligas from the local militant which had taken part in the wars for centuries and the imposition of higher taxes on them in the place of their quit rent led indirectly to the implementation of the Raitavari system. Now the Raita could not rely upon slaves for their agricultural activities, since their slaves were enrolled in the army in the same place. Besides paying higher taxes, they had to endure the additional responsibility of feeding the slaves and financing their marriages. This led to weakening of the system of slavery in Mysore. So, ಈ ಒಂದು ಮೈಸೂರಿನ ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನರ ಒಂದು ಆಡಳಿತಾವಧಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸೇನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಕ್ಕಲಿಗರ ಬದಲಾಗಿ ರಾಜಪುತ್ರರನ್ನ, ಮುಸ್ಲಿಮರನ್ನ, ಬೇಡರನ್ನ ಸೈನಿಕರನ್ನಾಗಿ ನೇಮಕ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳಲಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಎಕಾನಮಿ, ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನರ ಒಂದು ಆಡಳಿತ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿ ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನರ ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಅಮೂಲ್ಯವಾದಂಥ ಕೊಡುಗೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ದ ಪೀಕ್ ಆಫ್ ಮೈಸೂರ್ಸ್ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಪವರ್ ವಾಸ್ ಅಂಡರ್ ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನ್ in the late 18th century. Along with his father Hyder Ali, he embarked on an ambitious program of economic development aiming to increase the wealth and revenue of Mysore. Under his reign, Mysore overtook Bengal Subha as India's dominant economic power. with highly productive agricultural and textile manufacturing Mysore. Average income was 5 times higher than the subsistence level at the time of Tipu Sultan led to the foundation for the construction of the Kannambadi Dam, present day Krishnaraja Sagar or KRS Dam, on the Kaveri River, as assisted by an extant stone plaque bearing his name, but was unable to begin the construction. The dam was later built and opened in 1938. It is a major source for the drinking water for the people of Mysore and Bangalore. The Mysore silk industry was first initiated during the reign of Tipu Sultan. He sent an expert to Bengal Subha and study silk cultivation and processing, after the which Mysore began developing polyvoltine silk. Under Tipu Sultan, Mysore had some of the world's highest real wages and living standards in the late 18th century, higher than the Britain, which in turn had to the highest living standards in the Europe. Mysore's average per capita income was 5 times higher than the subsistence level, that is 5 times higher than the $400. 1990 international dollars or $2,000 per capita. In comparison, the highest national per capita incomes in 1820 were $1,838 for the Netherlands and $1,706 for the Britain. So it was the major development of the economic system under the kind control of Tipu Sultan. ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನರ ಒಂದು ಆಡಳಿತಾವಧಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿ ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಅಮೂಲ್ಯವಾದದ್ದು. ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿ ಒಂದು ಕೃಷಿಗೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ಮಹತ್ವ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದರು. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ಮೈಸೂರು ಸಿಲ್ಕ್ ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರಿ ಕೂಡ ಇವರ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಥಾಪಿತವಾಗಿತ್ತು. ತಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರಸಿದ್ಧಿ ಪಡೆದಂಥ ಪರಿಣಿತರನ್ನು ಬಂಗಾಳಿಗೆ ತೆರಳಿಸಿ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ರೇಷ್ಮೆಯನ್ನು ಬೆಳೆಯಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ತಿಳಿದುಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದು ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ರೇಷ್ಮೆಗೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ಆದ್ಯತೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದರು. ಇದು ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿಯ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಗತಿಯಾಗಿತ್ತು ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನರ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ರೋಡ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್. Tipu Sultan was considered as pioneer of the road construction, especially in Malabar. As part of his campaign, he connected most of the cities by roads. ಸೊ ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿ ಈ ಸಾರ್ವಜನಿಕ ಕಾರ್ಯಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ರಸ್ತೆ ನಿರ್ಮಾಣ ಕೂಡ ಇವರ ಒಂದು ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿಯ ಒಂದು ಕುರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಫಾರಿನ್ ರಿಲೇಷನ್. ವಿದೇಶಿ ರಾಜ್ಯಗಳೊಂದಿಗೆ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಸಂಬಂಧವನ್ನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ರು ಅಂತ ತಿಳಿದುಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. Mughal Empire, both Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan owed nominal allegiance to the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II. Both were described as Nawabs by the British East India Company in all existing treaties, but unlike the Nawabs of Karnataka, they did not acknowledge the overlaid lordship of the Nizam of the Hyderabad. Immediately after his coronation as Badshah, Tipu Sultan sought the investiture of the Mughal Emperor. He earned the title Nasib ud Dawla with the heavy heart of those loyal to Shah Alam II. Tipu was a self-declared Sultan. This fact drove towards him to the hostility of Nizam Ali Khan, the Nizam of Hyderabad, who clearly expressed his hostility by disowning the Mughal Emperor and laying claims on Mysore. Disheartened, Tipu Sultan began to establish contact with the Muslim rulers of the period. ಫ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಮೊಘಲರ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮತ್ತು ಹೈದರಾಬಾದ್ ನಿಜಾಮ್ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಸಂಬಂಧ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ರು, ಅದೇ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಫ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ತಮ್ಮ ಆಡಳಿತಾವಧಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನರು ಅತ್ಯುತ್ತಮ ಸಂಬಂಧವನ್ನು ಹೊಂದಿದ್ರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಇನ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಟೆಂಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಟು ಜಂಕ್ಷನ್ ವಿತ್ ಟಿಪು, ನೆಪೋಲಿಯನ್ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ Ottoman Egypt in the year 1798, both Hyder Ali and Tipu sought an alliance with the French, the only European power still strong enough to challenge the British East India Company in the subcontinent. In 1782, Louis XVI concluded an alliance with the Peshwa Madhavrao Narayan. This treaty enabled BG to move his troops to the Isle de France, now Mauritius. In the same year, French Admiral de Suffren ceremonially presented a portrait of Louis XVI to Hyder Ali and sought his alliance. Napoleon conquered Egypt in an attempt to link with the Tipu Sultan. In February 1798, Napoleon wrote a letter to Tipu Sultan appreciating his efforts to resisting the British annexion and the plans, but this letter never reached the Tipu and was seized by the British CP spy in Muscat. The idea of the possible Tipu-Napoleon alliance alarmed the British Governor General Sir Richard Wellesley, also known as Lord Wellesley, so much that immediately started the large-scale preparations for the final battle against the Tipu Sultan. ಸೊ ಫ್ರಾನ್ಸಿನ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ನೆಪೋಲಿಯನ್ ಬೋನಾಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಡ ಅತ್ಯುತ್ತಮ ಸಂಬಂಧ ಹೊಂದಿದ್ದ ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನ್ನ ಒಂದು ವಿಷಯ ಈ ಲಾರ್ಡ್ ವೆಲ್ಲೆಸ್ಲಿ ಗೊತ್ತಾದಾಗ ಕೊನೆಯ ಯುದ್ಧದಲ್ಲಿ ಮೈಸೂರನ್ನು ವಶಪಡಿಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳೋದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನ್ ಒಂದು ಆಡಳಿತವನ್ನು ಕೊನೆಗೊಳಿಸುವಂಥ ಉದ್ದೇಶದಿಂದ ಲಾರ್ಡ್ ವೆಲ್ಲೆಸ್ಲಿ ಯುದ್ಧವನ್ನು ಸಾರ್ತಾರೆ. ಮಾರಲ್ ಅಡ್ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟ್ರೇಷನ್, ಆಡಳಿತ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ, ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿ ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನ್ ಆಡಳಿತ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ನೈತಿಕ ವಿಚಾರಗಳು ಕೂಡ ಬೆಳಕಿಗೆ ಬಂದಿವೆ. ಯೂಸೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ ಲೀಕರ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಪ್ರಾಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್, ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಸರಾಯಿ ಮದ್ಯ ಮತ್ತು ವೇಶ್ಯಾವಾಟಿಕೆ ತುಂಬ ಒಂದು ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಮಾಡಲಾಗಿತ್ತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಯೂಸೇಜ್ ಆಫ್ liquor and prostitution were strictly prohibited in his administration. Usage and agriculture of psychedelics such as cannabis were also prohibited. Polyandry in Kerala was prohibited by Tipu Sultan. He passed a decree for all women to cover their breasts, which was not practiced in Kerala in previous era. The decrees is as follows: in the whole of the territories of the Balaghat, that is in the country below the Ghats, most of the Hindu women go about with their breasts and heads uncovered. This is animal-like. No one of these women should hereafter go out without a fuller robe and a veil. ಸೊ ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಒಂದು ತನ್ನ ಆಡಳಿತ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾದರಿಯ ಆಡಳಿತ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದು ಕೂಡ ಇತಿಹಾಸದಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಚರಿತ್ರೆಗೆ ಇದೊಂದು ಕೊಡುಗೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ರಿಲಿಜಿಯಸ್ ಪಾಲಿಸಿ, ಧಾರ್ಮಿಕ ನೀತಿ. ಆನ್ ಎ ಪರ್ಸನಲ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಟಿಪ್ಪು ವಾಸ್ ಎ ಡಿವೋಟ್ ಮುಸ್ಲಿಂ, saying his prayers daily and paying special attention to mosque in the area. As a Muslim ruler of a predominantly Hindu country, some of his policies have evoked controversy. The mainstream view considers the Tipu administration to have been tolerant. Regular endorsements were made during this period of about 156 Hindu temples, including the famed Ranganath Swami temple at Srirangapatna. His religious legacy has become the source of considerable controversy in India, with some groups, including Christians and even Muslims, proclaiming him a great warrior for their faith or a Gaji for both religious and political reasons. On one hand, many sources mention the opportunity of Hindu officers in the Tipu administrations and his land grants and endowments to Hindu temples, which are cited as evidence for his religious tolerance. On the other hand, various sources describe massacres, imprisonment, and forced conversions of Hindus, Bodos of Coorg, Nairas of Malabar, and Christians, Catholics of Mangalore, the destructions of churches and temples, and the clamping down on Muslims. Mapilla or Kerala, the Mahadevaya Muslims, the rulers of Savanur, and the people of Hyderabad state, which are sometimes cited as the evidence for his intolerance. ಸೊ ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಒಂದು ಕಡೆ ಧಾರ್ಮಿಕ ಸಹಿಷ್ಣುತೆಗೆ ಹೆಸರಾಗಿದ್ದರೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕಡೆ ಧರ್ಮದ ವಿರುದ್ಧವಾಗಿ ಅನ್ಯ ಧರ್ಮಗಳಿಗೆ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಹಿಂಸೆಯನ್ನು ನೀಡಿರುವಂಥ ಇತಿಹಾಸದಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರ ಕುರಿತು ಹೇಳಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ನೀಡಲಾಗಿದೆ. ಸೊ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲರ್ ಎಂಡೋಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಟು 156 ಹಿಂದೂ ಟೆಂಪಲ್ಸ್, ಹಿಂದೂ ದೇವಾಲಯಗಳಿಗೆ ದಾನ ದತ್ತಿಗಳನ್ನು ನೀಡಿ ಅವುಗಳಿಗೆ ಪೋಷಣೆಯನ್ನು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರುವಂಥ ನಿದರ್ಶನ ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನರ ಆಡಳಿತದಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಣಬಹುದು. The editor of Mysore Gazette reports the correspondence between his court and temples and his having donated jewelry and deeded land grant to several temples, which he was compelled to the forming alliance with the Hindu rulers. Between 1782 and 1799, Tipu Sultan issued 34 snags deeds of endowment to temples in his domain, while also presenting many of them with gift of silver and gold plate. The Srikanteshwara temple in the Nanjanagudu still possesses a jeweled cup presented by the Sultan. He also gave a greenish linga to Ranganatha temple at Srirangapatna. He donated 7 silver cups and the silver copper burner. This temple was hardly a stone throw from his palace, from where he would listen with equal respect to the ringing of temple bells and the muezzins call from the mosque to the Lakshmi Kanta temple at the Kalela. He gifted 4 cups, a plate and the spittoon in silver. ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಧಾರ್ಮಿಕ ಒಂದು ಸಹಿಷ್ಣುತೆಗೆ ಸಾಕ್ಷಿಯಾದಂಥ ಕಾರ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಮಾಡಿದರು. 156 ಹಿಂದೂ ದೇವಾಲಯಗಳಿಗೆ ದಾನವನ್ನು ನೀಡಿ ಪೋಷಣೆಯನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿದರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಅಸೆಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಲೆಗಸಿ. ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನ್ರ ಆಡಳಿತ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಯನ್ನು ಮೌಲ್ಯಮಾಪನದಲ್ಲಿ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಅಮಾಂಗ್ ಹಿಸ್ ಮೆನಿ innovations, Tipu introduced the new coin denominations and the new coin types, including this handsome copper double paisa weighing over 23 gram. The coin on the left also contains the emblem of the Sultanate of Mysore. Assessments of Tipu Sultan have often been fascinated and divided. Successive Indian National Congress government have often celebrated Tipu Sultan's memory and monuments and relics of his rule, while the Bharatiya Janata Party has been largely critical. School and college textbooks in India officially recognize him as freedom fighter, along with the many other rulers of the 18th century who fought European powers in 1990. A television series on him, The Sword of Tipu Sultan, was directed by the Bollywood actor Sanjay Khan, based on the historical novel by Bhagwan Gidwani. The original copy of the Constitution of India bears a painting of Tipu Sultan. So here are some important referential textbooks for the study of administration system of the Tipu Sultan. A concise history of Karnataka by Kamath Suranath. Insights into Karnataka history by the B. Narsingraju Naidu. History and Culture of Karnataka by Dr. S.N. Shivarudrappa. History of Karnataka by V.P. Hugar. Cultural History of Karnataka by Professor K.R. Basavaraj. Freedom Movement in Karnataka by Dr. M.V. Krishna Rao. History of Karnataka by Dr. B.P. Desai. ಈ ಒಂದು ಪರಮಾರ್ಶಿಕ ಗ್ರಂಥವನ್ನು ಓದಿದಾಗ ಇನ್ನೂ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನರ ಆಡಳಿತ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಯನ್ನು ಕುರಿತು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಇದುವರೆಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸವನ್ನು ಕೇಳೋದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ತಮಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಸೋ ಮಚ್ ಫಾರ್ ಲಿಸನಿಂಗ್ ಮೈ ಲೆಕ್ಚರ್.